Hello, my name is Rick and welcome to my YouTube channel. On this channel I tend to review products that are under $25, so if that's something you're interested in, I'd recommend subscribing below and following me on my Instagram at rickskin_. With that out of the way, I actually am going to upload 2 videos this week. One of them is going to be like, this is the first video I'm filming, it's just going to be like a talk through of like what I'm thinking, and I'm also going to have a Good Molecule skincare review that I'll probably upload them both on the same day. But I've just been exposed to so much content over the past 48 hours that have made me evaluate where I am in my life, what I want my YouTube channel to be, and what I would want it to potentially be. And those pieces of content are mainly Shane Dawson's videos with Jeffree, the Dolan twins, and then Trisha Paytas' recent coming out video. And they've really just made me think of what YouTube is becoming in terms of transparency on the platform, and like a lot of the changes that are happening with a lot of these young YouTubers that are growing up and wanting to make different content that they're more passionate about, and how the age group that I was in when I started watching YouTube is now kind of finding their footing and becoming an adult, and I'm in that same exact place. You know, I graduated last year from university. I went to UCLA. I have my bachelor's in psych, and my original plan was to go to medical school to become a psychiatrist. And I've been doing pre-med for about a year now, and just recently I went through like a painful like 2 weeks, and there is a cop coming. And I want to preface this by kind of giving you some background into like how I grew up and how I was essentially kind of groomed to go to medical school. So when I was like in elementary school, I basically started my academic career, if you will. Specifically, my mom has always been pushing me to go towards the medical route, because my family hasn't been the most stable with money a few generations back. So in her mind, the medical field was something that was always going to be secure, because essentially you'd always have a clientele, and that's sad to think about, but it's the truth. She was thinking about it in terms of wanting me to have a sustainable income that wouldn't waver, and that so I would be comfortable, because she herself wasn't always the most comfortable financially. So I can see where that came from, but the other side of it is that it filled me with a lot of expectations that I put on myself, and a lot of guilt if those expectations weren't met. And so, you know, went through elementary school, had a little bit of a rebellious phase in high school where like I wanted to be more creative. Like I like to paint, I like to produce music. Yeah, I'm more of a traditional artist in that way, and I wanted to pursue something with that, even fashion. And after realizing that like that opportunity may not be the most lucrative, and not having fully invested, basically I wasn't as passionate about it to the point to where like I'd want to pursue it as a career. But so I kind of fell into a depression in I depression. I have depression. I see a therapist for it, but I didn't start seeing a therapist till I started going to community college, but the symptoms I was experiencing were really at the beginning of high school until I saw that therapist in community college. But high school was a very confusing time to me for multiple reasons. But in terms of what I wanted to do with my life, when I hit junior year and people started, you know, staff, teachers started kind of telling the juniors and seniors to start thinking about what they want to do, you know, applications were coming up. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was lost because from a young age I was groomed to go into the medical field. I had this passion for traditional art, and I had this creative side of me that I wanted to tap into, and there was really no way for me to do both, or at least be successful in one, commit to one without sacrificing the other. So I decided to go to community college because I didn't want to invest a lot of money at a four-year university doing my general education at the price of the university's tuition when I can just go to community college, figure out what I wanted my major to be, and complete my general education at the community college price point. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made. If you are not in the best financial situation, I 100% recommend going to community college and transferring to a four-year university. The only reason I would recommend going straight to a four-year is if you plan to hit the ground running. Because the only regret I have about transferring and having only 2 years at a four-year university is that the opportunities I was given or that I should have taken advantage of weren't as many. Basically, I would have been way prepared to take advantage of the opportunities that a university provides if I was started there as a freshman. Because if you plan to transfer and you only have 2 years there, one, it essentially cuts the opportunities you're afforded in half, and then you kind of have to really start the first quarter or semester you're there. You really have to like apply to everything you can, see what you get in, and then weigh your options. And like, that's not to say like people I transferred with who were in my class, like I had friends that got into, since we study psych, they got into a lab like the first semester they were there. I went to UCLA, so we're on the quarter system. They got into a lab the first quarter they were there, and they really took advantage. But for someone like me who is fearful of failure, I decided to invest all my time in making sure that my GPA was as high as it could be. And because I focused on grades so much, a lot of opportunities kind of slipped by me that I wish I would have taken advantage of. Because focusing so much on grades not only degraded my mental health, but I have a lot of regrets afterwards of what being so focused on grades distracted me from taking advantage of. But basically, coming out of it from the other side of obtaining my bachelor's degree in psychology, I decided to do a post-bac program, a post-bachelorette program, where essentially post-bac programs are designed for people who maybe didn't get the best GPA during their undergrad years and maybe wanted to diversify their transcript or raise their GPA. And it's also for people who want to completely change their trajectory. And because I majored in psychology and not biopsychology or neuroscience, it didn't prepare me. It didn't allow me to take the classes that would prepare me for medical school, like the full year of biology, physics, chemistry, organic chemistry, calculus. So I had to do the post-bac program. And I did that for a year, and I did very well. Straight A's and 1B. I took chemistry, biology. I would be starting my second year this September 23rd, but I'd signed up for the classes, and honestly, throughout my entire experience in this post-bac program, I was deliberating whether psychiatry in med school was something I really wanted to do. And I took a lot of time analyzing myself, because I'm a very introspective person. It's part of the reason I got into psych. But I basically needed to differentiate whether it was school I didn't like, or whether I didn't like school because I was studying something I didn't want to eventually end up as. So basically, was it school I hated, or was it that I didn't want to be a psychiatrist anymore? And after a year of deliberation, I determined that I just didn't want to be a psychiatrist anymore. I had to grow, and my interest had become different. Even when I was in community college and I decided that I wanted to study psychology, the idea of marketing kind of always enticed me. The idea of like product development and marketing and analyzing trends and also tapping into that creative side and being able to come up with campaigns and packaging and stuff like that, that kind of encompasses everything that I personally enjoy doing. And that just kept gnawing at me the more I was kind of in this scientific realm of like, I like biology, but chemistry I just hate. And like, I'd taken calculus already and I passed it, but the program I was in forced me to take another calculus class, and it's been like 3 years since I've taken it, and I did not want to take it again. And the idea of psychiatry wasn't something that would necessarily get me through this extra schooling anymore. I didn't see myself as someone who would talk to people in an office. I saw myself as more being in collaboration with a team and being able to be creative with that team and coming up with things that people would love. And so I basically called my parents and was like, we need to talk, because they've been funding my education. I'm very privileged to be able to have that financial support, and it's part of the reason why I felt really guilty, because I've always prided myself on someone who knew what they wanted to do. Like, even during undergrad, I had friends majoring in psych, and they were like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm getting this degree and paying all this money, but I don't know what I want to do. And I was like, ooh, we should probably think about that. And I felt confident in saying that because I knew what I wanted to do. So I felt like really stupid and guilty that I came to this realization, because I did always pride myself as somebody who knew what they were doing, who knew how to get to where they wanted to be, and I had a lot of help from a lot of angles, which was helping me get to where I wanted to be. And I felt like I was letting my parents down because they had expectations of me, my whole family had expectations of me. I had such a great support system allowing me to get to where I thought I wanted to be. Because, with med school, there's kind of this idea that like it's really hard and like only really strong people can do it. So like as somebody trying to get to med school and then ultimately deciding that they don't want to do it, I felt like a failure. Like I felt like a failure because I wasn't fulfilling something that I've been planning for like most of my life. And as I said, I do struggle with depression. So having that quarter life crisis, I guess, suspended me into a state to where I didn't know how to feel. I was crying for 3 days straight. Luckily, my parents were very supportive of it, which then made me feel kind of stupid that I was so sad about it. Because they basically, my mom's a worrier, and therefore I am a worrier. So she was like, what do you plan to do otherwise? Because being in the gray zone isn't a good place to be, especially at a time at my age where like decisions kind of need to be made in order to start going the direction I want to go. I basically said that in order to still use my psychology degree, there's an area of psychology called industrial and organizational psychology where you do work within a business. It's kind of like a glorified social worker. You basically work with management to create an environment and a culture within a business that facilitates an optimal work environment where, everybody's happy and everybody feels like their concerns are being heard. And there's basically good interactions between all employees. That's what IOP is, industrial and organizational psych. But there's also marketing and product development, which is also areas I want to go into. So when you're a psych major, you take a lot of statistics courses, because statistics are essentially the scientific foundation of how we've learned so much about psychology. So we're well versed in that, and I wanted to use my knowledge of that as a tool to work in the business field. And I've always been kind of interested in cosmetics and skincare because it kind of combines all the areas that I've become well versed in, and it facilitates a complete feeling within me. So I want to follow that impulse. And that's partially why I started this YouTube channel. I wanted to be able to use my scientific background and my psychological background to talk about not just products and reviewing products, but also to talk about the culture behind the cosmetics industry and advertising and marketing, and how all of it works in synergy to create this big industry. And trying to come at that as somebody who's also trying to establish themselves as a YouTuber, sometimes there's a conflict of interest because you do want to be honest. Sorry, I got an email. But you want to be really honest, but unfortunately the way YouTube has progressed and the way it's been so commercialized is that being honest could sometimes it could come at the expense of ruining potentially some relationships with brands or other influencers. And that's why in the beginning I talked about how a lot of content lately has made me want to shift my focus. Not necessarily shift my focus because I still want to do like product reviews, but it's made me kind of happy for the place of where YouTube is going. For instance, with the Shane and Jeffree collaboration, like the last episode, the episode 2, it just really made me excited, the fact that a CEO of a brand was willing to talk numbers and percentages and profit margins and stuff like that to like a very large audience. Oh. This is Shadow, and she wants to cuddle, so I'll let her stay here. But that was so interesting to me, and the fact that, you know, they talked about the whole situation with Nikki Tutorials and Too Faced, and that's usually stuff you probably wouldn't have heard of, that we haven't heard of for years, but that's now coming to light, and I feel like it's the start of a movement of transparency within YouTube. And then I watched the video with the Dolan twins and Shane, and how they were saying that like they've essentially branded themselves since they were 14, and whenever they shied away from the formula they say they essentially knew would work, they were worried that they would become irrelevant or that they would disappoint the people who looked for their videos every week as a way to escape whatever troubles they were experiencing in their own lives. And this new chapter they're unfolding as two people who are growing up in front of the camera and just wanting to be more casual and film things that make them happy, or even sad moments that they were avoiding. It really made me think about how even starting out on YouTube, with the amount of subscribers I have now, how I want to, from the get-go, present something that is authentic and close to who I am as a person, as opposed to like, you know, not that I'm lazy, but the whole thing about like, you know, swipe up, like buy this product, like this product's great for this routine, like the whole like advertising fakeness part of it is something that I never really got into, and it's not something that I am comfortable portraying on camera. And so part of the reason why I also thought of that was because Good Molecules sent me a PR package. You know, I have 88 subscribers on YouTube and I think 120 followers on Instagram, and having a brand reach out to me at that level was something I wasn't expecting, not for maybe like at least until like a year went by and I potentially grew a little more. But they reached out to me. You know, they were very gracious and generous. They said they were fans of my YouTube and my Instagram, and that they just genuinely wanted to send me products and get some feedback. There was no incentive to post a review. There was no expectation of me to talk well of their products, which I appreciated, because it does take a lot of balls to kind of ask what I get. I hate the term micro-influencer because I'm just talking about products on camera, but it takes a lot of balls to have someone with a small following review products, because as someone with a small following, having a brand reach out to you, kind of, you want to chase that opportunity, because to review something that was sent to you lets others know that like a brand is trusting of you and they value your opinion. So you get some notoriety there, but then on the other side, from the business's perspective, I also have less to lose because I don't have a giant audience yet. The audience I have is great, and like I talk to a lot of people and everybody's really passionate about skincare, so that's been really cool. And since I'm not really gaining that much financially from the content I create, I don't necessarily have to speak well of these products to maintain some kind of like brand deal or something like that. So it's a double-edged sword in that there is incentive for me to talk good about the products because it makes me look good and creates a brand relationship. But then on the other side, from the business perspective, since I don't have a large following yet and don't rely on it financially, I don't have to talk nice about it. And that's part of the reason why I appreciate the fact that they're reaching out to smaller influencers like me. It's because, you know, they're very casual about it. They're not saying that like, they're not trying to be shady or implicit about like, ooh, like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Like I hate that. I hate that whole divisiveness behind the business world. I never liked it. It's part of the reason I didn't just major in business. I hate being fake. I wasn't raised like that. None of my friends are like that. So starting on YouTube, I just really wanted to create a foundation of authenticity, of reviews, and that were based off my own knowledge from being in school for so long and reading relevant research that's relevant today, and really using that to fuel my reviews instead of, you know, basing my reviews off other things like, is it a popular product? Do I need to agree with the majority? Is this brand going to think ill of me if I speak badly about their product? Like, what is this going to mean for my future development? Should I become big and brands not want to work with me because I didn't speak well of them in the past? And I didn't want to start off my channel like that. I don't think I should. I don't think anybody should. I think there's, like I said, a big movement going towards more authentic, just more authenticity on YouTube. I feel like a lot of the YouTubers that I grew up with are now at a place to where they're adults and they don't want to necessarily put on an act anymore. And at my age I'm glad I'm starting at the age that I'm starting, because if I would have started, if I would have started at like 16 or 17, like I would have been insecure to the point to where like I would have just followed any trend or anything to make people like me. But I'm glad that I'm starting at a point now where I'm in my 20s, early 20s, and I'm financially stable enough to not have to rely on a YouTube check and therefore have to fake positive reviews in order to gain money from these reviews. Yeah. I know this video went all over the place. Oh, I didn't talk about the Trisha video either. And the way the Trisha video kind of ties into this is that, you know, she's been known as a troll. She's admitted to it. She's done a lot of controversial stuff in the past. And she recently came out as transgender, female to male, and she got a lot of backlash for it because she is kind of this hyper feminine figure. You know, she's gone as far as to get surgeries to emphasize her female secondary sex characteristics. So people are like, why would you go through so much effort to emphasize those characteristics if you identify as a male? And you know, gender identity and gender presentation aren't the same thing. You know, there are some people who identify as the gender they weren't assigned at birth, but may still present as so, and that's perfectly valid. And that's basically the argument she was making, was that even though she is this hyper feminine figure, she can still say she has the right to identify as a male, because people should have the freedom to identify however they want and should have people identify accordingly and should have people interact with them accordingly. But people were really hung up on how recent this discovery for her was, and how just essentially all of her past and her clickbaity titles and her controversial topics. Basically, people saw this as a move to generate traffic to her social media. And I think it also calls into question the type of transparency that needs to be perpetuated on YouTube, because if she were, say, to feel comfortable talking about her gender expression, I feel like she would have talked about it a lot earlier and not now. She said she's been seeing like a gender psychologist or a psychologist that specializes in gender for about 6 months now, but she's been experiencing this cognitive dissonance since she was 5, 6, or 7 years old. And I think it's opening a cool conversation about what it means to be transgender and how that term is being appropriated the more people are exposed to it. And part of the backlash is actually most of it is from the LGBTQ community, because, our identities are so exploited and fetishized that we do get territorial over it because it's kind of all we have. And for someone who posts, who does participate in a lot of clickbait and controversial topics on purpose to generate clicks, to now out of nowhere say that you're transitioning, it is triggering, because transgender people are still fighting for acceptance in society, and it feels like someone's continuing to exploit that in order to potentially appeal to a new demographic or align themselves with a community in which they really have no way of relating to. And even in her video, she talked about how she feels like she is a man because she's always been attracted to gay men, and how she's always felt close to transgender people because they're able to live how they feel authentically and be praised for it, which that statement also in itself is untrue, because most transgender people do face a lot of adversity. So it just seemed like she was really ignorant about the topic, despite the fact that she does feel that she's transgender. It just feels like she was really misinformed about it or something, so it's really hard to believe. But I think the point that needs to be made is that we need to trust and believe people who are coming forward with these feelings, because she does seem very confused, and trying to fight that with trying to combat that with hate and trying to push her down so that this doesn't spread isn't necessarily the most progressive thing to do. I think because she does have such a large platform, it would actually be great to attempt to educate her and allow her to kind of go through this journey of finding out who she really is in front of the camera. I just think that would allow others to relate to her more, and maybe for those who are also very confused about their gender identity to realize that there's people who they watch on a day-to-day basis who are probably going through the same thing, or maybe they're not 100% sure of their gender identification, and maybe they're thinking that they're this when really they could be that. And so the whole overarching theme of this video is that there needs to be more transparency on YouTube. I feel like the more commercialized it gets, the more it's gonna turn into network television, which is what we moved away from to go to YouTube to experience. When YouTube started, the whole reason people liked it was because it was a direct conversation between the viewer and the person holding the camera. It was really intimate. And now that brands have kind of invaded the space and commercialized it, and now we have ads and sponsorships, it's essentially turning into what made us shy away from network television and cable. And I just think in order to differentiate YouTube and make it more of a valuable asset, we need to kind of go back to that more authentic and increase that more authentic feel and create more transparency. And from both ends, from the influencer side and from the brand side, stop trying to push it to a point to where it all just becomes fake, you know what I mean? And on this channel, I really want to help facilitate that, if I don't like a product, I don't like a product, and I'll tell you why. I'm not just gonna sit here and be like, I didn't like this because I didn't like the way it felt. I really want to get into was it this ingredient that changed the texture of this? Was it the scent? Does this need a scent? Is there alternatives? What can this brand do better to make better products? Or just basically share my perspective, my unfiltered perspective on this YouTube channel about where the cosmetics industry is right now and what the products being created are like right now. That was a lot. Oh my god. I wanted to split that up into like 3 videos too. I was going to do like another video where I talked about like my past and my education. But I guess we'll just do it all in one. I'm probably not even going to edit this a lot either because I'm filming 2 videos this week. I'm going to upload the Good Molecules review right after this, so that's probably what I'm going to spend more time on. But if this is the first time you're seeing me and you actually watched all of this, my name is Rick. This is my skincare channel where I plan to review products and do brand reviews and maybe do more videos like this talking about the overall state of the industry and YouTube in general. But mostly brand reviews and product reviews because that's something I particularly enjoy, like trying products and like looking at texture and the science behind it. Like in that way I'm able to like focus everything that I was trained to do from like being a psych major, studying biology, from having this creative and business mindset. I'm able to use that all. I'm able to integrate all of those aspects into how I review products. So that's what I want this channel to be. So if you'd like to stick around and join that little community I hope to facilitate, I'd recommend subscribing below and following my Instagram at rickskin_. And yeah. So I hope you guys liked that, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.